Okay, to calculate rotations, you need to basically do it by eye. You can do it mathematically, but it's incredibly boring and difficult. So, first of all, we know that we're rolling like that, and if I look in the channel box at the top right, I can see which channel is doing all the work. It's rotate Z, so that's the one that I'm going to animate. Rotate Z selected. Okay, so I'm going to go back to where we started, which is there. Jump back one frame. I'll put a keyframe there, and then when we move forward like this, I'm going to look at the gimbal, and I'm going to look at the x-axis, and try and use that as a rough coordination. So from there to there, and you can see, can't you? Yeah, that's about right. Not bad. I'm going to do this on ones instead of on twos. Maybe a bit more. Yeah, I think that's right. Next one. Not quite. Yeah, you see I've got my cursor on the gimbal, on the actual rotational pivot. That's how I can tell by eye how this looks. Looks fair. You can see the X1 coming down to ground here. Needs to be a bit more than that. And that's too much. There we go. And we're slowly getting our way through. And it should create, in the graph editor, a rough heading. So you can see this is almost a straight line, which means we can start predicting how fast this ball is going to travel. So I can skip ahead all the way to the end, which is there, frame 51. I'll go in here and I'll say to rotate Z, put a keyframe down. I'll spline these together, like that, and I can see that rough straight line that I'm drawing. And now I'm going to take this and drag it like that till I get this line here looking pretty much the same. Try and get a bit more of a helpful view. I'm going to tell this to linear back to there. So, there. Now the problem is the ball slows down, so the rotation will look fine at first and then it'll go wrong. So if we hit it, doink. So we'll hit the flat spline so that it slows down. We'll say it slows about that much. I'll alter this. I'll tell that to still be reasonably linear. Let's just say about there. And let's see if it looks right. It doesn't look that bad. It's actually not that bad at all. That was quite close. You can see towards the edge, the end there, it's slowing right down and not quite working. And that, oh, yeah, it's sliding a bit there. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to right click on rotate Z and put a key there as a way of marking it, as a way of saying to the curve, right, we'll go up to there. And then from here, I'm going to do it by hand again, so that I get it perfect. So let's have another close look at this. So from there, move forward a little bit. My gimbal's not as big anymore, so I'm going to hit the plus and minus keys to make the gimbal bigger so that I can use it as a guide. So probably there. Yeah, about there. And another one. Looks right to me. And another one. Yeah, looks good. And then, whoop, it's jumping back there because I left this keyframe here. I'm just going to delete that. That doesn't look very good. Almost right. There we are. Great. I'm falling off the edge here. And this is such precise work. You wouldn't be able to leave this to chance with the splines. You just gotta slowly, as with all art forms, slowly spend the time getting it right. And I'm looking at the wire mesh now of the ball as a rough guide. See this bit of wire mesh here? I've kind of been looking at that as the pivot for this. It's starting to fall a lot now. There we go. Right, and we're officially falling in now. I think I'll do 1 or 2 more frames. And I'm looking here now. Whoa, great. I'm going to look down here. Get that right. And this is going to do the same as before now because we're going so fast. This is going to create, in the graph editor, a rough heading for the rest of the curve. To there. There we go. And then a little bit more to there. Let's watch that back and see how that looks. Zoom out a bit and move this over. Whack. Doink. Yeah, it's looking good. And I can just rotate now at the consistent speed. So this is where it's going. You see here, this has become a much more straight and predictable path now. This bit here was a very tricky bit. We had to get that perfect. This bit here, though, is quite obvious. So I'm going to hit the linear key between them so I can see the rough guide. I'm going to go to the end, the bit where it hits here. So I'm going to let it will probably rotate in the same way all the way down to here. I'm going to right click, put a keyframe in, hit the F key in the graph editor, the A key, zoom out a bit, and grab this and drag it all the way down here. Bit more. That will have to do. Click to there, line them up. So in theory that should create a nice rotation that looks consistent all the way through. Not bad, yeah. When we get down to here, it's now going to be another case. It's going to be a case of going back in there and doing it by hand. So just looking at how things react. And I'm going to say that it wouldn't have necessarily stopped rotating in that direction. Bang. Whoops. I'm always tempted to do double frames. Let's just say it stopped. Let's just go to there. So it's almost like it phased out at that point. I'm going to auto spline that. And are these still stepped? Yes, they are. I'm going to auto spline them. There we go. So that's all auto splined now. It is down at the bottom as well. Alright, let's see it. Yoink. Yeah, not bad. Good. So what we've done is we've stepped through everything. We've used the spline tool to provide us with that X movement so that we can get that roughly right. We've had to improv as we've gone along, but in the end it's all turned out alright. So I am looking at the paddle again, the thing that I said I'd come back to. And in honesty, I'm not going to come back to it because I think it looks fine. That's why I stepped away from it earlier, because I knew that when I looked at it again later, I'd either decide that I was looking at it too much to the point where I'm getting obsessed with how it moves, or I just needed to give my eyes a rest so that I could see the problems later. I've had a look now and there aren't any problems. I was just looking into it too much earlier, which is why it's important sometimes if you're getting obsessed with a scene and you're getting obsessed with the way something's moving, just leave it. Come back in half an hour to 45 minutes and you'll be able to judge for certain. You'll be able to decide whether or not it needed any more work. So that's the end of lesson 2 on animation in Maya.